Hello, all fine, beautiful people. I'm back here once again with another album review, and today I'm going to be reviewing Lizard by King Crimson. If you're new to the channel, hit that like button, smash that subscribe button, click that little bell down below so you don't miss anything. Like always, if there's anything you want me to review, just put it down below in the comment section. Now, I'm going to change up a little bit how I do my album reviews, be less in depth, and just kind of give general thoughts on each song, see how that goes, tell me if you like the change or not. So let's get into Lizard by King Crimson, because I heard their first two in the Court of the Crimson King and in the Wake of Poseidon, and both albums I really enjoyed quite a bit. So it's been a while, so I thought, you know what, Lizard, let's give this album a shot. So it was released the 10th of December 1970, just turned 51. The album features Robert Fripp on guitars, Mellotron, all that stuff, Peter Sinfield on lyrics and some synthesizers, Mel Collins on sax and flute, Gordon Haskell on bass and vocals, and Andy McColloch on drums, and Keith Tippett on pianos type stuff throughout this album. Album starts off with Circus. Now, the great thing about Circus is it starts off with this very lush, very beautiful setting. And then all of a sudden, like, Gordon Haskell's singing a little bit, going just very melodic, very mellow. And then all of a sudden, like, the mood just changes. It goes from being very lush and beautiful, mellow, to just very chaotic all at once. And it's quite a contrast for King Crimson. And his one thing about his singing style in this song, Circus, reminds me a lot of Fish from Marillion in Pseudo Silk Kimono. Sounds very similar to this, like it was an influence for him. The bass and acoustics on this song, Haskell's bass, Robert Fripp's guitar playing, fits perfectly. Like, they just meld together really well. Robert Fripp on acoustic guitar is just amazing to listen to. Like, his very classical, very just guitar playing is just like, wow. Like, that's pretty good. Like, him and Steve Howe, very similar in that way for me. I like a sax. It sounds like a sax solo going on underneath the Mellotron, but there's just some really good stuff. Like, there's freakouts in here. And I like how throughout this one theme keeps emerging, like the chaotic theme keeps re-emerging with everything. It builds frantically to a big ending, and then just really the drumming throughout is just mind-blowing listening to Andy McColloch drum through this, because it's not simple. It's not like on time, like boom, boom, boom. It's like boom, 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 boom type stuff going on. So it's really nice to listen to. On to song number 2, Indoor Games. It has a very jazzy type stuff going on. It's very infectious. Really damn good. I love it. Then they come up, start singing for a bit, and then he's like, Indoor Games. And then afterwards, Robert Fripp follows up with just din, din, din on acoustic guitar. Sounds great. Tempo changes to somber until really the indoor game stuff reemerges. Nice groove sections throughout. But what really got me is at the end of the song is nothing more than Gordon Haskell, I believe, laughing, which is pretty much like you read some of these lyrics and they're just very, what's the word? They're just very absurd to the point where I just believe Gordon Haskell just couldn't take it anymore. He's like, these are just insane lyrics. On to song number 3, Happy Family. Has a very heavier sound to it almost. The vocals on it are very catchy to it. There's some really big, kind of feels like avant-garde fills to it. But the thing I want to really talk about is Gordon Haskell's bass throughout this. It reminds me a lot of like Greg Lake on other albums. Just his bass is so infectious. Like, you can just hear it. Chris Squire has a big booming bass. Like, I love how they mic'd his bass. It just cuts through everything, and just some really nice jazzy sections throughout. On to song number 4, Lady of the Dancing Water. Has this really loud flute sound piano intro The song is very melancholy, very laid back, folky, pastoral, I guess is the way to describe it. It has flute solo, but it's such a beautiful song, and it's very radio friendly. For King Crimson, I believe it's under 3 minutes. I could be wrong, which is very short for King Crimson. So this makes me think instantly they were thinking about a radio hit from this album or something they could just plug out, play, fill up a bit of the album, play on the radio, get it out, labels happy, there's something there for them. And on to song number 5, the epic on the album, Lizard. Wow. Very eerie intro to start, but it filled in with the guest vocals of Yes's John Anderson. John Anderson on this is absolutely beautiful. Nice pianos. I love Anderson, and I believe Haskell are both singing at the same time in parts, and I just love their voices together. Just some beautiful guitar parts. I love the atmosphere this song brings, especially in this first bit, and then just moves right into this jazzy, the second part to this 4-piece song, very jazzy, almost like a jazz jam, if that makes sense. Oh man, like just the bass piano, Haskell's bass tone is just beautiful throughout this entire album. Like you hear this, it's really damn good. Third section picks up, band enters, and it sounds like King Crimson just stays in kind of this jazzy jam section pretty much throughout most of the song. Has a freak out center, slow bass into what sounds, I think it's a guitar solo. It could not be. Don't quote me on that. Like, I'm not versed enough, especially listening to some of this, because some of this sounds so much like other stuff. It could be a violin, it could be guitar. I want to say it's a guitar solo by Robert Fripp, but don't quote me on that, with a synthesizer, and it just builds into this like and then ends with this circus light piece. Really good. I really enjoyed this album. This is whole album, 5 songs. In my opinion, Lizard is one of the best so far King Crimson songs I've heard. I love it. It's lush, it's beautiful, it's eerie, it's jazzy, it's all over the place, very avant-garde, very much King Crimson. If I had to pick a best song off this album, I would have to say Lizard for me. I just enjoy the hell out of that song. Hidden gem off here, Lady of Dancing Water, and even the song, oh, what's it called? Indoor Games. Mostly for just that, just that entire line, just really, my wife came out while I was listening to this on headphones, and she just looked at me weird, like she could tell I was really into this album. Worst song off this album, I don't think there's a bad song on here. The good about it, now it's time to bust into the good and bad. The good about it, great avant jazz-like record. I've heard some people say it could be like up there with Miles Davis's Bitches Brew as being like one of those jazz fusion, what will later become known as jazz fusion. Gordon Haskell's bass tone and vocals on this. To think about Greg Lake leaving the band and to think, oh my god, what are we going to do vocally? And Gordon Haskell being able to not only perform King Crimson bass-wise, but also fill in vocally, spot on, great singer. John Anderson's guest performance on this, to me, really speaks that with Robert Fripp and his vision of King Crimson, he brings in John Anderson singing on one part, and it was absolutely amazing to hear. I didn't even know it until I was listening to it, and I'm like, is that John Anderson? So I went back and looked at the credits, and it's like, oh, it is John Anderson. That's amazing. Andy McColloch's drumming throughout this, I didn't write it down every song, but some of his drumming throughout this entire album is absolutely insane. Like, that's one thing I'll give Robert Fripp, is he always had amazing bass players. Mel Collins sax, great rhythms and jams throughout this album. Perfect blend, like I said, of jazz and avant-garde. Now it's time to get to the bad. The only bad thing I can really speak about this is the fact the lyrics are a little absurd. I believe if this album came out, I want to say maybe if this would have been their first album and then the others would have came out, I think it would have worked. I think the problem is by this point, at least in my opinion, psychedelia had almost run its course. So to use those kind of psychedelic lyrics kind of missed the mark a little bit for me, but not enough that it badly affect the grade. And it's the only album to feature this lineup. It's been said that Andy McColloch and Gordon Haskell after this absolutely hated the recording of this to the point where they're like they want nothing to do with recording with King Crimson again, which is sad because this is actually a really damn good record in my opinion. I know Robert Fripp throughout the years, for years and years and years, I read, said he absolutely hated this and thought anyone who liked this album is weird. Coming from Robert Fripp, other people weird. Wow. But if I had to give it a grade, I know I ranked In the Court of the Crimson King and Wake Up Poseidon's 5. I think this is a 4.5 out of 5. I think the only part that really missed the mark was the lyrics at times. And I'm not going to take off a full point just for that. That might be like just me nitpicking. But I really, really enjoy the music, the compositions, everything else about this record. It's just the vocals or the lyrics to it that is what I don't care for very much. And yeah, that's my thoughts on Lizard by King Crimson. Now, like I said, if there's anything you want me to review in the future, just put it down below. I'm trying to keep these below under 15 minutes. So, looking at my timer right now, doing a good job. So once again, thank you guys so much for watching. This is me signing out. Peace.